Hey everybody, Dave here, and I hope this will be an exciting video in the series, only because this is not going to be a quick video and it does require a lot of explanation for you to wrap your mind's eye around all of this. This is really, it's functions like these that make this series so valuable because a good chunk of these are pretty much self-explanatory. I almost feel stupid recording some of these because they are so simple and it almost feels like a waste of time, but I want to cover all of them just in case somebody is absolutely brand new, because if you are absolutely brand new and maybe never even seen or used Excel to any extent, this is going to be overwhelming to you. So I do try to cover some of the ones that, even though I feel stupid about them, I realize that there are people that are completely green, very brand new, and it's extremely helpful, even though for the majority of us that have been dabbling in this for a little while would maybe get kind of bored with a video. But this is not one of these videos. So let me start and preface this video by saying this is a best practice. You absolutely should be using these functions in every app that you build. You should also be using additional and advanced features that are beyond the scope of this video, but I included down here an in-depth video about about logging errors and everything else that you're going to need to know. And so these four functions are almost, they kind of build on one another. They almost kind of don't really stand on their own too well. In some cases they do, and you'll see more of that. So I'm going to start off today explaining error, and then we'll go to IfError and IsError and IsBlankOrError functions. But to start or set the stage, let's look at a label. And normally I have this stuff pre-built, but before I even start the video. But because I know this is so confusing, I wanted to take you along baby steps so there's nothing on screen to distract you, and we can just take this at face value. So, as always, down in the bottom I have a link to the description, documentation, and everything below. Let me go ahead and take you to the top, and so this explains all of this information here. Now, if you try to digest this, some of you will have no problems, others will get more lost than it's helpful. So really that's the purpose of this video. To start off with, error is a function, okay? So we can use this and we can put error in here like this and start off. Now the only thing it needs is a record. Just read down here, this is where I'm reading from, the second line. A record containing the custom value for the produced error. Okay, that in of itself is helpful, but there's a bunch of prerequisite information you probably don't even know or appreciate. So let's jump over to this right here, where I'm going to show you a table somewhere, if I can find it again. Okay, here we go. See this table right here? Let me just make it expand it so it's front and center and I don't distract you with everything else. Okay, an error, a record, is, think of it as a row in a table, okay? And the table has columns. So where you see field, I want you to change that word out with the word column in your mind's eye. And you have these following columns. You have kind, message, source, observed, and details. When you're creating an error, a custom error message, these are the types of fields, columns, that you should have when you're creating your custom error, okay? Very, very important. Now, a little bit further down here in the documentation is this, syntax, okay? Error, and then it says error table. See, their own documentation doesn't even tie this stuff together, so if you don't know that this is related or interrelated or what they're referring to, it's extremely difficult. They should have linked this text right here, error table, up here to this, because that's what this is talking about, but it's not clear that this is what they're talking about. Also, in the other video that I have, this in-depth video link down here, I provide you a link in the description of this video to my GitHub file, and in there I have an Excel file that you can turn into a list. And this is important because the field kind, K-I-N-D, so if we go back over here to the doc and come over here to this, it's a category of an error. So if you don't know, and by the way, the error is a numerical value, okay? So this is what it's expecting. The kind, you don't provide it anything other than the category of error, and the category is either 0 all the way through 25. And it means something. And so the meaning is this title column. And I had to hunt, I hunted all over the internet for this. I can't for the life of me remember where I found it. But nonetheless, I captured it off and I created a video and I stored it out here because the rest of us are going to need to know this. And so good luck finding it. I can't find it in the Microsoft documentation. If it exists, please put a comment in the link below where this might exist elsewhere on the internet, because like I said, I've already forgotten where I found it. And in any event, this is good as of 2023. Maybe it's changed, maybe it hasn't, but because it's so hard to find, go ahead and use this for right now. And I use this as a lookup table so that when I'm trying to figure out what the error is, I can give a more human readable digestion of, hey, error 20 is a not supported error, other than what the hell is kind, what does that mean, error 20? So anyway, so that's why I have that here. So going back to this table and then going back down here to this, where we're talking about error and error table, inside of error, it accepts a record, and that record is that list of columns that I told you about. Kind, message. I'm not going to go back up to the table and show you the table again, but again, this is what kind is over here. And this is the key. This is the key that you need to know. Kind is required, okay? So when you're creating a custom error message and you do error, you need to provide a record. Okay, so I'm going to put it in parentheses and put my curly mustache brackets here so that we can create kind. And then kind, I'm just going to do 0, which is unspecified or unknown or something like that, or none, I guess it's what it is. And so I'm getting an error message, not an actual error, but a syntax error. And it says system no error. Well, that's fine, okay, because I can't. This data type is of error. So if we look over here, see data type error. Okay, that's great, but I can't use an error data type in a text box. It's expecting text. So this now brings us to the next function, IsError. Well, the next to the next function. Okay, IsError. So IsError. Now let's bring this over here. This is, I think, time to bring this in. So I'm going to give you, we're going to use IsError on this right now, but I want you to know that IsError, it's a function test for an error value. And if it sees an error, it will give you a Boolean true or a false. Okay, so I'm going to bring this back in just a second. Let's finish off with this function, IsError. And then I put the error inside of there, and I get true because it sees an error. So now if I take this error message that I pasted in and I replace it with hi, it should say false, and it does, because it's not an error, it's text. But if I replace text with an error, then the IsError functions as true. So it's like a Boolean type of test. So IsError. And this is great, right? This lets you know if there's an error. And if there is an error, then maybe you'll do something, whatever you want to do, if this winds up to be evaluation is true. So you could do that in an if statement. If, and then in your statement below that, IsError. So you could do something like if, colon, let's bring this down, make this a little bit bigger so that we got a little room to work with. If, whoop, we'll bring that back. We'll bring this all the way down. And okay, so I got if IsError, and then we'll do yep. Otherwise, nope. Okay, so this is what's going to come out of here. So now I'm getting, yep, an error. Come on, I'm trying to bring this down so I can write. Okay, let's bring our text box. So I'm passing in an error. I'm using IsError, and it's true. So if I, again, just put maybe, just regular text, even though it's blank or empty text, it's not an error. So it's telling me, nope, it's not an error, okay? So the reason I gave you all of that is so that you could see how to use IsError. And error, you'll almost never use it unless you want to create a custom error message. But if you create a custom error message, make sure that you minimally provide kind, and it has to be numbers 0 through 25. 0 through 25. At least these are the known errors that are valid and real. And you can optionally provide message, source, observe, details, right? So you can put all of this in your custom error message. So hopefully now you understand what error and IsError is. Half of the battle is over, okay? So now we need to talk about IfError. IfError is a little bit trickier, and it's powerful, very powerful. So the IfError function, I'm just simply copying this out of the, out of the documentation, but I wanted to just highlight on this. The IfError function tests values until it finds an error, okay? So it's like a dog, a hunt dog. It's simply just going to hunt until it finds an error. And then when it finds an error, it's going to go, aha, I got an error. But when it finds the error, it's up to you to say what to do when you find the error. And if it doesn't find an error, you have an alternative option to write regular code. So the way the syntax works is it's like this. It says, if there's an error, then handle the error. Otherwise, do this. And the otherwise do this is just another fancy way of saying, look, if there's no error, then this is what you should be processing anyway. It's like a try-catch when you're dealing with other types of programming functionality that exists in other programming languages. So if error is like a try-catch. And that basically says, hey, I don't know what's going to happen here, but as a good programmer, I'm going to put this into a evaluative type of summary so that when an error comes up, I'm going to handle it in this manner, proactively, not reactively, not after a user calls and bitches your application is horrible and the help desk is lighting up your, your email or phone because you just wrote some lackadaisical lazy code in your Power App. So by doing this, you can jump and get it in front of it. You can proactively log things. You can do a whole bunch of other stuff. Again, call out to the in-depth video down here at the bottom right corner of this. And so it's really, really helpful to understand that the IfError statement will allow you to do certain things. So a good example of this might be IfError. And then what we need to do is we need to provide a statement of what this might be. Let's divide 1 by 0. We know this is going to be an error because you cannot divide by 0. And so one of the things that we'll do is we'll say notify Come on, David. And we'll just simply provide this. Otherwise, we'll just we want to make this an error type. Okay, and we'll do notify. This is what I'm going to do if I'm, processing whatever. Let's set a variable. The example so this variable should not get set if there's an error, and notify and concatenate the example. It would help if I put the right thing in here. And we'll do success for this. No error. And I'll put that in here. Okay, and then I should be able to close up my entire statement here. And it's complaining. which it shouldn't be. Why is this complaining? All right, I got a parenthesis here, I got a parenthesis there, and that closed up that. Probably a better way to illustrate this is not on a text. Let's insert a button. Okay, on select. Yep. All right, so now that I have the proper control here, this will do what I've intended, because I was trying to display this in a text box and there was no text for the text box, so it was complaining. Anyway, so I can still use my error handling here. So I'm going to hold the Alt key down. Actually, I probably have to play it. Okay, see, an error occurred. Okay, so this is going to be a problem because it'll never work because you can't divide by 0. And let me go back and change the logic to not produce an error. Let's divide 1 by 1, which should be able to. And then let's play it again and click button. And I was expecting a good notification, but I didn't get it. So why, oh why, no error. Oh, that's right. This needs to be like this. Play again. There we go. Okay, so you can see that I didn't have an error. And so it gets a little tricky because you're inside of a function. And so you really got to get used to dealing with it, because you just saw me screw it up. And the reason I screwed it up is because I used not the semicolon, because this is, I'm trying to chain these two statements together. That if there is no error, I think a better way of breaking this down is, let's do it like this. So this evaluates if there's an error. And this is important because this is the main statement that we're trying to run the logic on. This is the try. So try this. And it says, okay, try this. And if there's an error, what do I do if there's an error? Right? So what do I do when I find an error? And then here, here's what I do if all is okay. And so now I can do one statement or multiple statements, known as chaining. And when you chain statements together, you have to use the semicolon. And as you saw, I just screwed up and I set the variable, but I didn't do it that way. Anyway, from the last output of the global variable, you can see that the V example is blank because I haven't run anything. And when I run it, if I push the Alt button, and you've seen this before, it pops up and says, hey, life's good, everything's all fine. So this is how you would go ahead and use the IfError. Okay, IsBlankOrError function. Let's go ahead and grab that text box again, if I still have it here. Label. I got a label down here. Let's use this one. Okay, so error. And we got to do a record, not an array. And let's do kind, and kind colon 0. Okay, and it's a text box, so that's fine. And, all right, we've got the error produced. Is blank or error. And now I just need to do an expression, okay? So I'm going to pass in the error, and it evaluates to true, which we would expect, because this is evaluating is blank or error. Okay, so let me bring this back up again. Is blank or error is the same as running or. Is blank X, is error X. So what it's basically doing is it's evaluating an is blank and an is error in one statement, and I don't have to do this or funky thing here. I can simply just evaluate, hey, listen, if I'm doing something, and a lot of times if you're evaluating something, you need to figure out, hey, listen, if it's blank, I do one thing. If it's an error, maybe I do another thing. And if that's the case, then you would want to use them separately. But if you're simply needing to do something in one fell swoop, you don't really care, but you do know that, for example, the column for that row or for that record, it has to have a value. And if it's blank or there's an error in it, then boom, I need you to do something specifically, in a different way. So IsBlankOrError fires off true because I'm passing in the error. But if I simply just do quote, quote, it's blank, right? And so if I put in, some text, it's no longer blank. It's false, right? So it's good. And I just put blah, 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 like gobbledygook inside of here. Also, if I pass inside the blank function, it's going to come back as true, okay? So that's how you use the IsBlankOrError function. So hopefully this covers all of them together. Again, highly suggest that you go through and look at this in-depth video. I talk about things at the application level. There's a very, very cool on-error piece here. A lot of us use on start. A lot of us use the start screen, but very few of us know or even have recognized that there's a complete different on-error function. And this is super, super powerful. Again, highly encourage you to watch the in-depth video where I go into all of this. But in any event, I'm only going to cover in this particular video the 4 PowerFX functions. I hope this was clear. I hope I built it in such a way that it was easy enough to follow and gave examples or real-world examples of how or why you might use it in this way. That's it for this video. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.